Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of Mjengo Podcast, and I'm happy to be with my co-hosts, architect Brenda Nyawara, karibu sana,
Asante,
and urban planner Brenda Ngoya.
Asante.
Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
I hope you had a good week and you're ready for this.
Yes, definitely excited for the
Okay, sawa,
conversation.
sawa. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Maybe just a word to start us off.
As a famous quote by architect Louis Sullivan in 1896 saying form follows function. And personally, I agree and I disagree, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Form follows function.
Yeah.
Today we want to discuss urban spaces, especially the place of cities in our societies, especially new ones like Eldoret and those ones which are proposed. So for me, that quote by Sullivan, form follows function, is apt, and considering that these cities, some of them are just declared in the spirit of launching things. So it would be interesting to interrogate what is the import of that quote, that do we come after the form has already been created, then declare these are cities, or do we make deliberate effort to create the functions first? And once the functions are in place, then we can say, here we have a city, like a sculptor, you know? You carve, you decide, I'm going to sculpt a car or a statue of a person, and then you go through the motions of carving, and then you say, I'm done. Because I tend to feel like the way we are doing it is, we first declare, this is a city,
Yeah.
abracadabra,
That could
Function.
work actually.
abracadabra,
Yeah.
and then we try to fit in the functions of a
Yes.
city.
Yes,
In
yes,
it.
yes.
And these places, some of them are bound to remain towns.
It's true.
What do you think?
Okay, about form follows function, I'll reference the first or the second episode that we did about beauty. And for me, form should follow beauty. I think if you try to bring beauty in everything you do, even in cities, in buildings, you'll attain a lot of things and functions for the city.
Okay.
Yeah, and a beautiful city is one that is movable. You know, you
Yes.
can breathe through it. You know,
Yes.
you can interact safely.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
Yeah.
healthy.
Healthy.
Yeah.
So do we have this magic committee that sits and then says, okay, fine, this is the checklist, and therefore, this one is a city,
The committee should be urban planners.
urban planners.
I mean, also
Okay.
architects.
Even architects, so yeah, actually.
And we are assuming now that we have Eldoret as a city, that it has gone through that process.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
There was an ad hoc committee that sat for 3 years and
Discussion.
must have had good discussions for
Okay.
it to be conferred city status.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that the length of time.
Okay, in reference
Yes.
to the Urban Area and Cities Act, like, if you check out the statistics that have been outlined in the Act,
Yeah.
Eldoret fits.
It fits.
It fits from the
Yeah.
population size to
Okay.
the kind of service that it provides.
Yes.
Maybe governance. I don't know if I
Irrespective
can.
of the quality of services.
Irrespective, but then
Yeah.
it
Because
should be a factor.
it is
Yeah,
not hard
yeah,
to
yeah.
imagine that if you had a list or a checklist
Yeah.
and said the population must be 250,000, and then you said there must be a referral hospital, even if it is dysfunctional, and then you say there must be a highway or a roundabout or whatever the checklist is,
Yes.
then many places will qualify to be
To
called
be a
cities.
city.
Yes.
Are
Yes.
they really cities?
No, they're not cities. Well,
Or
by
is
the
there
book
a
they might
magic
be.
to this
Yeah,
word
by
city?
the book.
Yeah.
By the book they are.
They
They are
might be,
cities.
but according to us, I think no, it should be a higher standard.
Yes.
There's
yes,
more
yes.
to a city and should be expected of a city.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a city is just a town with swag, you would say. Because you said
Debatable.
higher standard.
Debatable. Actually, to me, a city should be a place that attract different kind of people. Maybe let's say creative. I think if you want to define creatives are different people, different experts, from architects to the musicians to the artists. So a city should have that
Ability
aspect.
to sustain that
Yeah,
human human functions.
Yes. So our questions come: does Eldoret play that function? Does it attract creatives in its city? Does it have maybe enough universities to be able to attract scholars in it?
And if you look at ancient cities, how they came about,
Yes.
ideally a city will be something so celebrated because it offers
A lot
a lot of attractive
Like
things.
a true north.
A true north. And
If you're in the
that's an
village, you just feel
example.
like I think
You want to move to the
I
city.
must move to the city.
Yes.
Okay.
But now when you see how, let's say, polluted some cities, Nairobi, looks like,
Okay.
even the hustle and the bustle of Nairobi, there's really nothing much that can tell you, I want to live in that city or I want to go to that city.
Yes.
Okay. So there are facts on the table. Like Nairobi is a city. Nakuru is another city.
Yes.
Eldoret is now a city. Ruiru is a city.
Coming up.
Really coming up.
Undeclared.
Thika town
Yeah?
supposed to be becoming a city.
Okay, sawa. So what are these things we are calling the mistakes of Nairobi? Because that is the subject of our conversation today. What are these things we call the mistakes of Nairobi, which we feel or you think might be repeated in Eldoret as a city?
For me,
First of all, are there mistakes?
Oh,
Or
yes.
it's perfect.
a lot. But maybe we'll want to go back in history of
Okay.
how cities came about. For Nairobi, it came about because of a railway.
It was a yard.
Yes.
A railway yard.
And the issue of the colonialism came, the segregation issue. So we have to investigate, does Eldoret have the same characteristics? How did it come about?
I saw in the clip that were launching the city, there was one that the governor had compiled and he shared. And of course it showed a white man, I think he was disembarking on a train.
Yeah.
And it's the same, is it the same yard story like in Nairobi, that it was this yard for the railway, the railway hub, and everything followed from that, so that everything now grew concentrically from the railway hub. Is it the same story for Eldoret?
Yes, it was an agricultural city, town, came up as an agricultural hub, like a marketplace.
Like a marketplace, okay.
And then several other things came up around it as well.
Okay.
If you look at it, it's a linear town. It was a linear town.
Okay.
A lot of buildings came about because of the railways
The
and now the highway.
Okay. Okay.
So it acted as a resting place for people who were transversing to different areas. So with time, a lot of things came about.
So if I look at other periphery towns like Bungoma and Kandui, there are very many long distance truck drivers who park there. And are you saying that is enough to trigger?
It can be
another
enough.
City?
Yes,
Because I mean, if that is the criteria that we are using.
It can be enough, but
as long as they populate the place, because you say it's 250,000.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is interesting. So if you're watching this, please you can leave some comments and then we look at them and enrich the conversation. It will be interesting.
Yeah.
So back to the point. We were saying that look, it's a fact these cities are already there.
Yeah.
And there are certain things we see in Nairobi, like we must have a criteria. If we are saying these are towns, these are municipalities, these are markets, these are cities, there must be a defining criteria. And so maybe we should begin there. This defining criteria, so that we say Nairobi has fallen short of A, B, C, D, E. For me, I would name 2. Then you can name 2. Then you name the next 2. Then we continue in that pattern. So for me, the immediate criteria would be ease of mobility. You see, cities have larger than usual populations compared to villages and towns. And so with this high population, you need a quick way of moving people for efficiency, to move people to and fro. So mobility is a key factor. And by mobility, I mean moving people and moving goods.
Yes.
Okay, moving people and moving goods and services.
Water, power.
Yes. So Nairobi, in that criteria, I will give my critique on that criteria for Nairobi to identify the mistakes. Number one, in terms of mobility, it's two-way. It is being able to move from point A to B, either through a publicly mediated means like an Uber or a taxi. There it's doing fine. Okay, but individually, if you want to use other modes of mobility, because for Ubers they're a bit efficient in the sense that you can request to move from point A to point B.
Yes, they are, but I don't think I don't think we want to promote having more Ubers on the road for the city. Like,
the point is to have mass transit.
Yeah, mass transit.
Mass transit.
Not the two or three
Not just
moving
mobility.
around.
No.
Okay, you raise a good point.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the population and how they would prefer to move, maybe because of their economic status, we find that 60 to 70% of people in Nairobi
They walk.
are pedestrians.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then a small proportion uses motorbikes and bicycles. And when you look,
use public means.
majority use public means.
Yes.
So, on the public front, do we have an end-to-end solution for mass transit, mass
Absolutely.
movement of people?
No, we
No.
don't. Not a
If you
good
use
solution.
matatu, you know how hectic Nairobi can
But I thought we painted BRT on Thika.
No, that
be.
wasn't a
Even
solution.
that doesn't
The
function.
paint, even they
Or was
removed
it
the paint.
was it
It
was
was
it a
removed.
prophecy?
There's no longer any lane
Yeah.
for BRT, and then we don't have the last mile also considerations.
Okay,
When the matatu leaves you at the stage,
Yes.
then now you're lost. Where do you go?
you
Then?
become a pedestrian.
Yeah.
Or you take and do the. So mobility challenges in Nairobi.
Yeah.
The second challenge is, let's say you want to operate fully on a bicycle.
Problem.
Now the thing is, as you start your journey, it might be well from the
Yes.
estate.
From your house,
Yeah.
from your door.
Then
Yeah.
you find the people who supply services, like the people who supply underground services, they've dug up their services, left the place unattended, and therefore you have to disembark from the bicycle,
Carry it.
carry it over the
Imagine.
beach, only for you to find the road has ended. Like literally
Yes.
the bicycle lane
Has
has ended.
ended.
So we have incomplete lanes. So
Not
then,
connecting.
so that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Either you find an advertising billboard on your path,
Or a
First,
Kenya Power
or a
pole.
Kenya
How
Power
safe
pole.
do you feel to cycle in Nairobi?
Absolutely
Now
not.
safety is
No.
another factor.
Motorists
This is
who
just
don't
mobility.
respect.
Safety is another factor.
Oh, that's on another.
For cities, safety, that is another factor. Because I remember a long time ago, if you lived in Buruburu, the Nairobi, first of all, we are talking about the current Nairobi is dysfunctional. The previous one was having some level of functionality when we had the Kenya bus service.
Kenya bus service. And there was also
KBS.
a smaller population living in
There's a
Nairobi.
small, so it means
Yeah.
Nairobi was working
When, you have
when the
fewer
population
people
was 3
was-
million
Exactly.
or less.
or less, maybe a million.
Yes.
Okay. So a city can grow into dysfunction.
Yes.
Yes, when
It
neglected.
cannot be able to handle the population
Yeah.
that it's growing. It doesn't provide enough service for all these people that
So for me, Nairobi
That are
has
moving
failed
in.
that test of mobility
Yes.
or ease of mobility.
definitely.
Because even when you decide to walk, you can't walk while whistling. You have to look, because then we have open drainages,
Yeah.
And even surfaces.
and
for
even
pavements.
surfaces, billboards,
Kenya
So you-
Power
you-
poles.
Kenya Power poles,
Yeah.
you know, and
Garbage. Dust.
Yes.
there you go. So it fails on that on that rank. The second one is air quality.
Yeah.
So during COVID, if you had a mask and you moved from one end of the city to the other end, and then you examine the mask, because you see you're breathing in air, and you turn the mask upon reaching the other side, and you looked, you would, most of the time you would see that
Dust.
your mask is full of dust on the on where the air is coming in, and where the air is trying to get in, which means do we monitor air quality in Nairobi?
No.
I mean, the administration should.
But do we?
But
No.
I don't think we do.
We don't.
And there are laws against exhaust fumes from vehicles, from factories, dust itself, but they really, nowadays,
How
any
many
vehicle
times
is
have
still
you
on the
been
road.
driving on the road or walking or whatever, and seen a vehicle pass by,
with all
and it's literally a
Yes.
fuming machine?
and
I mean,
they are
it's
unroadworthy,
smoking.
and they're still on the road operating.
So it means we do not have a policy for air quality
We
control.
shouldn't even say we don't have policies. We have enough
think we
policies.
do. It's just
You
not
see,
we
being
have
this is my
enough-
this is my understanding of policy. If there's a policy that says let there be no slums, but you are collecting rents and rates from
slums.
slums,
You're
the
enabling-
default policy
is
is
that
that you
there
are
are
encouraging slum
slums.
formation.
Yes. Another place.
So in Kenya today, like for example, let's take noise pollution. There's a policy against noise, making noise, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
You remember when the resident associations were saying there's too much noise. But if you needed to sell SIM cards in Nairobi CBD, what do you need to do? You fill a form and you say, I would like to sell SIM cards from this time to this time. And then you mount the speakers on your lorry and you blast the loudest music and sell the SIM cards, which means that the policy is there on paper,
It's just
Yes.
not implemented.
but it's not implemented.
Yeah, one of the problems of Nairobi, we have the policies, bylaws, everything. It's just not implemented. And in cases where it is, it's because there's a Kanjo guy there, I follow the law. But immediately he leaves, then I'm free to do anything.
So
Yes.
we follow the law by supervision.
By supervision. During the day, people actually don't have the hawkers. We don't have the hawkers on the streets.
Okay.
In the evening, it's haywire.
From
the
5.
city for everyone.
Might
Yes.
that be suggesting that the city works at night?
Well, apparently it doesn't then.
Like you
I
see,
mean, the city doesn't
at
work
night,
then.
the city, at night, the city has less population.
It's left to the... Well,
It
not
depends.
really.
During rush hour,
During rush
from
hour,
5
everyone
to
is
around
coming.
7 or 8.
But from midnight onwards, the Nairobi
there's-
city works very well, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
empty,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, you
definitely.
can move
Definitely.
around,
Yeah.
it's clean, it's fresh.
So,
It's
will,
fresh.
can the issue be population? Are we too many?
I did not want
in a
to say that.
city?
Yes, because again, you can't say let's depopulate the city
Yes.
to make it better.
It can. Let's imagine, maybe if you want to do a relocation plan for maybe a city or a population relocation plan, what steps can we maybe follow? Are there alternative towns or cities that we can
You can
look
only
at services?
How will you agree on who should leave the city and who has the right to live in the
that's
city?
that's very
Actually,
that's very
An
theoretical.
idea, an idea can be,
Okay.
if I was a governor of Nairobi and I wanted to do a relocation plan, I could start with the university, maybe
Move them to the
Move it
periphery.
around. So move
them
like
to
the
the
University of
peripheries.
Nairobi out
Out
of the
of-
city.
because imagine how many numbers of students join Nairobi University, KU, took each year.
Okay.
How many?
Okay.
And how many are able to leave after graduation? Very few.
I see that.
So I'll start relocating the universities.
I would even say
Then-
move the government offices
Exact-
so we don't have
And
traffic
then
Exactly.
when you
being
do
around.
that, are you
Yes.
not going to lose one of the criteria for having a city?
Or having the
Because now you have
universities
this
there.
place where
learning
there are no
center,
universities and
library,
no
research center.
libraries.
So if you relocate a university,
Okay.
you build amenities around it. Like you have housing, you have transport around. What else? Hospital, like basic libraries, basic for it to function and grow. Then other things will follow.
Come
These people will graduate and some will want to.
So I've given
To remain that
two criteria. I hear you. I've given the criteria of
Yeah.
mobility and I've mentioned noise and air quality. Please, it's your turn.
I mean, I would also say the actual built form of the city. I
The
think we
built
have
form.
failed, yes, as
Okay,
Nairobi.
okay.
Because number one, look at the quality of spaces where people live, the slums. 60% live in slums.
Yeah.
The quality of the houses, horrible. The schools, horrible. Markets, dirty. Streets, dirty, everything.
Are
not
those
working.
not the marks of a city?
They are,
Because
and I
there are
feel
no slums like in my village.
that's a good
Now,
thing.
so
And in the
a city,
cities, it's
one
where
criteria that you had mentioned quietly is that a city must have slums.
slums, so that you can see it's a
That's what you're
city.
saying.
No,
Although it's wrong, but then the slums in our country exist in our cities.
no.
Yeah?
Right?
Because the thing is, if we are going to use this scorecard on Eldoret, it passes the test because there's Langas
Yes.
and which is the other slum?
Yeah. I mean, it's horrible. And then as a city, normally when you see like an image of New York or
So quality of housing.
quality of housing, even just quality of the buildings, there are some, I think sometimes in some ways we are very, very ugly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because a city is something you stand in awe and see, like the gates you see. But now, a lot of it is such an eyesore. When you look around Nairobi, it's like, oh man.
This is not a place to live.
But there's a thought experiment. If you flew in from Cairo and you landed at Jomo Kenyatta, took the expressway, landed at Westlands,
It
entered
looks
Java,
nice.
Yeah.
and then went to State House to say hi,
It looks
Ah,
nice.
yeah.
and proceeded to
what are you
Runda.
talking about?
It looks nice, but
Nairobi?
then on the ground.
Nairobi is
People
the city
say
to
Nairobi
be.
is beautiful,
From
bottom up. Not
Okay.
mid up.
Mid up.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
take photos of Nairobi
Okay.
from a certain view from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
expressway,
From Uhuru Park, that
Yes.
is
Looking in
towards
this
Parliament
direction.
buildings.
it's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, but
If
don't
you-
turn the camera.
don't
No,
turn-
no, no,
don't look
no!
at the-
Don't do like this.
Don't look at the feet.
Do like this.
So
Don't
are
look
these
down.
slums
Yeah.
simply the feet of Nairobi? That a city must walk, and therefore we need the people who inhabit the feet part of a city to coexist with those. I remember when people were demonstrating, while they were carrying placards on Uru Highway, okay? Remember they were coming from the other side of Uru Highway. Just behind them, there were people playing golf,
Yeah.
which is the upper part of
So
Nairobi.
it
And
means
it's like the irony.
the problems is not for everybody. It
Yes.
affects certain
Just
people.
Okay.
certain people.
Yeah.
So a city is a
That's
city to
right.
some.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
some.
to
to
some.
others it's
to
hell.
some,
It's
yeah,
hell.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the criteria of good housing or quality housing, Nairobi fails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
built form infrastructure failed.
Do you reckon now that Eldoret is a city, they have put in place these grand plans whereby the population will be adequately accommodated, such that we don't have slum formation in or are we going to see competition in the number of slums between Nairobi and Eldoret?
Eldoret, I
That,
hope so.
that if Nairobi is ranking highly
Yeah.
with the 200 slums, then you're going to have
Competition.
Eldoret
Let's
at
also try.
180.
I hope so because I hope not.
Not so.
I hope
Not.
not.
Okay.
Because they always say urban issues, if you don't address them, it gets worse. Like the aim, or rather
Okay.
the end goal, it always gets worse unless you mitigate it now.
Yeah.
And so with growing population, there's always going to be something worse happening in a city that you have to mitigate now. So if it's growing, I really hope they have planned for that.
Which other criteria then would be, would you say, we would use to rank Nairobi as a city, other than quality of housing? What about governance, maybe?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Maybe
What's your word on that?
maybe I'll talk about solid waste management.
Okay.
Like generally waste management in Nairobi is hectic. If you look at history, people who used to live in gated communities like Buruburu, maybe in the late 90s,
Okay.
they used to say that government was so efficient in collecting
Garbage.
There are
Okay.
government lorries that used to maybe weekly come and collect, and solid waste was managed very nicely compared to now. Now, cartels have gotten into the system.
Okay.
Everything about solid waste has been privatized.
Okay.
All the waste in Nairobi that's collected, it's literally dumped. It's not
At,
recycled. It's not done anything. Yes,
Okay.
Dandora was filled, I think, years ago, and it was closed. It was marked closed, but garbage is still being dumped.
Okay.
If you go to some residential areas, even in CBD, you'll get heaps of waste.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it
So-
that the population of Nairobi has been invaded by what? There's humankind and there's garbage kind. So have we been invaded by
Yes,
garbage
yes,
kind?
yes.
But I blame the humans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
But
we
if there are
can't.
no systems,
Yeah,
you
we
can't help it.
yeah.
If you're consuming, if you're buying loaves, it has a wrapper.
Yeah.
You must
Dump
finish
it
eating them at some point. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
As much as we blame the government, or the government is not taking any responsibilities for solid waste, but we ourselves have to like take initiative and
Yeah.
But if the dumping site is full, what initiative are you taking to
personally
evaporate your waste?
At the
There's
very
no
least.
initiative.
recycle. You
These are
can
municipal-
recycle.
you
they are
can
municipal-
recycle.
You can recycle.
They are
That's the
municipal
Yes, yeah, yeah,
services.
No, but then you don't depend on the government to tell you not to litter or dump garbage.
Okay,
Yes.
littering is different. We're talking about
Or
solid
solid waste
and,
management.
and
Yeah.
waste management. So if it's a criteria and we are ranking 0 to 10, where would you put Nairobi? Is it maximally is 10? Maximally means
On garbage.
it is 100% recycling all the
Oh,
waste.
no.
no,
Consuming
no,
or
no,
disposing or
no,
something.
zero.
So where are you ranking it?
Zero. Negative.
Yeah, yeah.
Negative.
Zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
So-
if you
Zero means we even have backlog of waste which now we don't know where to take.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Most of the waste is either dumped in Dandora and maybe in rivers.
Okay.
Yeah, choking.
So which other factor? Because we've looked at waste, we've looked at mobility, we've looked at air quality,
Healthcare system
healthcare systems for the population.
for the population.
Because
Yeah.
okay. So where would you rank Nairobi? What would you say about it?
Definitely. Okay. I've personally I have no experience with maybe having issues with health,
Okay,
but
okay.
I know the issues are
We are
there.
still in the salad years.
oh, young and
Oh, yeah,
fresh.
yeah.
Those of us who've had to.
Yeah.
In fact, when you drive by a hospital,
Yeah.
you don't notice.
Yeah,
Nothing.
Yeah. Okay.
But healthcare system is expensive to a lot of people. A lot of
Okay.
people can't afford,
Yes.
and the dependent NHIF is not functioning. Like,
Okay.
why are people paying
Mhm.
money to NHIF which is non-functional? If you go, like NHIF chooses
So the healthcare
the
system
type of
in Nairobi
services
has
they
collapsed.
offer to you.
Public healthcare system
Public
is
Yes.
working or not working?
Yeah, because private, if you have money, well,
Yeah.
you say almost every corner there's a dispensary or a private hospital you can go to.
Okay.
But we judge by the public standards what the people can access.
Okay.
And for real, yeah, our healthcare system.
So we need to work on that standard.
yeah,
Maybe even
Okay.
service delivery.
service delivery.
I'm very sure in Kenya, if you go in Kenya, you'll get long lines of people who are waiting to be served.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that's interesting. So in Eldoret, then we would be hoping for superior services in terms of healthcare and
We are
access to.
we are assuming the healthcare system that is already there will be able to serve the population that is currently
It is these
existing.
assumptions that are giving me trouble because
yeah, because making the
someone just
assumption-
walks to a town,
Yeah.
a sleeping town, says this is the home of champions, even if the
Yeah.
champions are less than 50.
Yes.
Then, having declared it's the home of champions, they hire these artists to go at the roundabout or square about, I don't know what that thing
The
is,
square about.
and erect this ugly thing, put Mursik,
Yeah.
whatever, and say, now this is a city. So we see, hope is not a strategy. In my view, we lack like a formal criteria.
Yeah.
We lack a formal criteria to even now declare the next town as a
As
city.
a city.
It all depends on lobbying
Yeah.
and mtu wetu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
that, but I also feel like there must be some sort of documentation and information
Okay.
that is not accessible to us as a public. That's why we're making assumptions, hoping, because there's no way you can just sit down
The documentation
as
needs to
an
be obvious.
ad hoc committee. Yes,
You see,
actually that's the thing.
if
Information
someone
sharing
says-
is not common.
if someone says the tallest building is X, whether you see
Well-
the documents
Or not.
or
Well,
not, you
yeah,
can look. You have eyes.
Justify, but you'll be surprised how many strategic plans exist in this country about
Okay.
things.
They do.
Okay.
They
And
do.
it's so rich.
One
But the
thing
implementation.
One thing you should know about Kenya, we have very brilliant professions
Minds
to
and
provide
information.
nice documentation.
Okay.
Like even
Research.
sahi sisi tukiambiwa we come up with a strategy of
Oh.
how
Haraka,
to
haraka.
Yes.
to manage waste in
Yes.
Nairobi.
Yeah,
Trust
we
me, we'll
can.
document
And the solution.
nice
Okay, okay.
reports and solutions.
So-
So there's a gap in
Between
implementation.
implementation and I think
Yeah.
also just information sharing,
Yes.
because we as professionals don't know. I'm sure the layman has no idea.
I'm observing something. So I was listening to someone explain the relationship between science, technology, and innovation. And he said the science are the facts and figures.
Yes.
And this is what we are trying to interrogate, the facts and figures.
Yes.
When we say, can you move from point A to point B? Is the road complete? Is the street complete?
And you showcase the steps because you have to prove it.
And yes, and you showcase the step that if I'm cycling from Langata, I can
Here
get to Buruburu on my bike
in this number of
without demounting.
Yes.
That would show completeness of a bike lane.
Including the risks, including
So
the
that is the
opportunities.
science.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that there is a science to what you call a city.
There
Yes.
is. Yes.
This science that is if you look at the bigger picture, like at the global level, we have what we call the Smart Cities Index,
Yes.
Yeah.
of which Nairobi is number 131.
31.
So we are saying if you judge Nairobi by the air quality, by mobility, and then you judge it by governance,
Yeah.
and then
Services,
health,
Yeah.
and then
infrastructure.
presence of recreational facilities like parks and play areas for children. It fails the test
It
at the
does.
global level. At the global level, out of 141 or 44 cities, it's number 131.
Yeah.
So it is that bad. Then you take this standard of number 131, and then you go to you drive towards Eldoret, and you say, here is another city. If Nairobi is your standard, and it's already failing on this criteria. So that's the science bit.
Yes.
Can I ask?
But
Yes, please.
In that list, where would you place Kigali? Because it's a smaller city, but then it has gotten some things right.
I will check. I've
Probably
not seen.
higher
But
we'll
the
have
thing
to.
is this. If you take an objective criteria of facts and figures, which is the science, and you pick any city, you should be able to place it among the cities. Okay? So that if you look at Copenhagen, it has 75% ease of mobility using bike or walking.
Okay.
Like if you're going to work or to school, 75% of the time
Oh, the trees.
you would not encounter any barriers or strain or whatever. You will not be hit by a car. The bike lane is separate and protected
continuous.
Yeah.
and unhindered.
Yeah.
Here, when you try to just move from Hilton, this side of Hilton, to the other side of Kenco,
Yeah.
there's a barrier there by the Hilton
Vehicles
Hotel.
and buses.
No people.
Oh, it was removed.
Is this removed?
Yeah, it was removed.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
That's
it was
good to know.
removed. People can now sit around in front of
The
Hilton.
idler's corner.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to
No,
the
not
criteria.
idlers. The city, it's your city.
Yeah.
You can sit
Jobless.
No,
Jobless.
no. Even I also sit there. when-
There are people who mount those benches to sign. To sign. If you want something signed quickly, I want you to sign like this. They do it for you. So anyway, let's not go into that. So this criteria, science, are the facts and figures, of which we are trying to troubleshoot Nairobi and Eldoret, and we are finding they are missing in those.
Yeah.
The second one is innovations.
Yeah.
And then now when you have an idea, and then you incubate it, that's the technology bit. But the technology is still not a solution. It just says that these are several ways of doing it. These are several ways of moving through a city. You can move by BRT, you can move by train.
I can
you
give
can
example of that. It's the same as using CCTV to solve the issue of surveillance,
Yes.
to help solve the issue of security.
Security,
It doesn't mean you're secure. You still have to apply other
means at least.
So
like
there's-
closing the
Yes.
door.
So the science is the facts and figures. Then the technology are the several ways of doing the same thing. Like now, for mobility, if we had BRT that is actually functional, then now that's the innovation, that the BRT is actually solving the problem. Now we have the idea, we have the papers, the way you said we have professors and PhDs, we have the papers, but we do not have the counterpart,
The actual action. let me say
instantiations
that.
of those
Yeah.
ideas.
Because I think it's just unwillingness. Because if it's space for BRT or infrastructure, we have the funding to do such measures. We do. If the space, if you wanted the space for a light rail, or even just add bike paths every time you do a road, we can do that. We just choose not to. Our governance chooses not to. And so something like that, it means we, number one, knowledge, of course. What's stopping us? What would stop us?
So it's
Corruption.
lack of governance.
Yeah, corruption, lack of
So you
governance.
see, if you rank low,
Ignorance as
if you
well.
rank low on
Yes.
governance,
Yeah.
if
That's
you
our
rank
problem.
low on governance, it doesn't matter how many other solutions you have.
Then you will not get a solution.
Because even for BRT, it's publicly declared that the funds have been allocated, and the buses, they ordered 60 buses or something.
Yeah.
Electric.
Oh, but you see people who are opposing
Buses.
things like BRT because they own matatus, the 14-seater matatus.
Okay.
So they don't even want the large buses. Like, no, let's resist.
But is a city this weak thing that you can just say, I'm opposing the city because I have matatus?
Because
Yeah.
decision makers.
There's something we are not discussing. It's power.
Power.
Yes.
Okay, the power structure.
Yes, the
Okay,
power structure.
okay.
Yeah.
We, the people who have the knowledge, who know how the city should be, are not even
Power.
close to power.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are outsiders.
Yes.
Okay. But they said that even if you know the truth and you have no power, you should say it for the record.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah.
So
And I'm
that-
sure this truth has been said for years.
Okay.
Eh?
Now let's jump to this Eldoret, this our town, Eldoret.
Mhm.
When you take this criteria, the science, the facts, and the figures,
Mhm.
and you go and you flew above Eldoret,
Mhm.
would it tick those boxes? Mobility, then opportunity. In fact, being able to find work easily in a city also makes that
Yeah.
rank highly.
Yeah.
isn't
That's
it?
why a lot of people are in Nairobi because of opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think is Eldoret simply going to repeat these mistakes? Because I saw that there are these signs of a bicycle and then the red across, and there were about 5 Nduthi guys there. Two on the Ndudhis and 3 on bicycles. But above them on the Kenya Power Post, there was just before the city was launched, there were these freshly printed signs that says no prohibiting.
Bicycles.
Yes. And this
Under
is
what circumstances?
and bikes.
Yeah.
Because basically our ideas of cities are not African.
Do you
It
know?
eliminates the low classes. It says you pedestrians, you have no place here in the city.
Do you know boda still functions in Eldoret? Like you can pay boda in city.
But
and
now that has
advance
been
from
declared
one
a
place to
city,
another.
but now that has been declared a city, the signs are up.
No motorbikes.
No motorbikes.
Not
Okay.
boda, bicycles.
Bicycles.
Both.
No
That's why
bicycles.
Yes,
No.
No bicycles.
bicycles.
That's retrogressive. I mean,
it's a city now.
so they're saying only private vehicles can go through.
It's like when Wakubwas visit Nairobi. You know how the roads are cleared. And now,
Yeah, at in our show.
So, inclusivity.
Yeah.
We didn't mention. So in terms of inclusivity, I foresee something. You see the way Nairobi discriminates against certain categories of people.
Yes.
For example, it ranks people who have cars highly,
Yeah, private.
and it
Yeah.
and it ranks people who are pedestrians lowly.
Yes.
Even the people who use matatu.
Yes.
There's a clip that says, who uses matatu? The poor people. And then it's a famous quote people have been using. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is, does it mean that now that Eldoret has been declared a city, then we are going to see discrimination against
I
now
hope not.
pedestrians
I hope
and
not.
people on because the moment you have road infrastructure that doesn't have a complete bike lane and a complete pedestrian path
Yeah.
and zebra crossing at the right places, it means already you're beginning to fail on the criteria of mobility
Mobility.
and inclusivity.
And inclusivity. And I hope they're not taking like lessons from Nairobi. I hope
Okay.
they're not looking up to Nairobi and actually living by standards of what a city should be.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this thing now. Nairobi is like an industrial, educational,
It's
Transit.
everything.
transit,
Business.
town.
Town.
Education town also.
Education.
Yeah.
What about what about Eldoret? I would think it's an agricultural
Natural. Yeah.
City.
city.
What does it mean to be an agricultural city? Like
Very
That's-
nice, very nice.
there are farmlands.
So you see,
And
in
people-
Nairobi, in Nairobi, there are 3 things. There are people, animals, and plants. Nairobi has a problem with people keeping animals.
Yeah, apparently it's a law.
It
Yeah.
is a law. It is, I mean, if you try to keep a cow, you're in trouble. So there are 2 criteria. There are 2 reactions of the city when you try to keep animals in Nairobi, for example. First of all, it's concluded that we are not supposed to exist with animals, except if they are in a zoo,
What about Masai?
or if they are pets, or if they are pets, or if they are vermin.
Rats and cockroaches.
Oh.
So you're allowed
You're
to
allowed
keep
to
rats and
have
cockroaches
in
in
your
Nairobi,
house.
because there's
That's
when you look at the
ridiculous.
law on the bylaws, there are no penalties for keeping rats and cockroaches.
Feed horses,
But
chicken.
pets, you're allowed. But you're not allowed to keep goats and this. Otherwise, you will pay high penalties. You remember they were introducing in the finance,
Or even
bill.
cats. I saw something about
Yeah.
200 bob for
The
cats.
cat.
Yeah. So
Each
let's
cat you
take
own.
that conversation. Let's take that conversation to an agricultural city. there's a mistake that Eldoret can avoid using this very anti-people law.
Backward laws.
So in Eldoret, I want you to imagine Eldoret as a thriving city. Okay? Eldoret is a thriving city. It is full of farmers. Most of the people who are successful in Eldoret, they grew up in homes that kept animals, that thrived in milking and agriculture. And so that as a criteria in city formation means the urban planners who are in Eldoret, within Eldoret, they must allow these activities, these human-centric activities to continue.
In a high-density area where you have apartments and small plots, you're going to keep a cow.
Yes, please. Think of it this
You
way.
want to keep a cow in Nairobi?
Let me explain. Let me explain. Because I'm saying,
will it eat?
what mistakes, get me right.
Okay.
What mistakes can Eldoret avoid that Nairobi has failed to avoid? So you see, in Nairobi, you have this heavily busy center,
Metropolitan area.
the core Nairobi area.
Yeah.
Like on Uhuru Highway, towards Harambee House, that way, Parliament, that's very
Towards
busy.
Haile Selassie.
Industrial area, all the way to the universities. And then, on the opposite side of that Uhuru Highway, you have what I would call quiet parks. So, you have the golf club, then you have Uhuru Park, then you have Arboretum, and then you have, what is this other park next to Uhuru Park?
Central
Park.
Park.
Yeah.
So you see that pattern,
Like a buffer.
that if you're busy in the city and you have had this hard day full of noise, at lunchtime or just after work, you can retreat to these quiet parks and take a breather.
Is
green.
Upper Hill, because just right after Uhuru Park is Upper Hill, is Upper Hill quiet compared to
But
to
there's
the
a buffer
CBD?
zone here you are seeing. I'm explaining this buffer zone. If we take that idea to Eldoret, those would be common lands left
For
without
public
asphalt.
parks. Yeah.
Because if you're saying this thing is going to become a city,
Yeah.
we expect the same intense activities.
Let's not copy
No,
or
no,
replicate
no.
anything from
I'm
Nairobi.
saying as a criteria, quiet parks, green spaces,
Green spaces,
parks,
connected
play
parks,
areas,
play areas should be
and tarmac
maintained.
places,
Yes.
place left the way nature intended,
Yeah.
are so vital to the health of a
Of a
city.
city,
Yes.
yes.
And Nairobi has failed in that. They even
Yes.
want to start a disco at Uhuru Park.
Yeah, Uhuru Park also has now like more pavements.
You see
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
And now you see the same brain is running in schools, in public schools, and paving
Oh, they're
every
paving
open
areas.
with cabro.
Why?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you see, this virus, let's call it a virus, this cabro virus, and this virus where every tree, do you remember Ngong Road?
Oh, with the,
The trees.
bougainvillea
Yes.
trees
Do you
that were
remember?
cut down for the expansion of the road.
What happened? Every tree is now almost cut, isn't it? What
Yeah.
about processional way?
Yeah. No, they've maintained those ones.
So are we saying that Eldoret will start cutting
Let's
all
not.
No,
trees?
no.
In fact,
But
warning.
on
do
a
not.
positive way, let's look at it. Vile Eldoret iko hivi sahi. What if it maintains vile iko, then it tries to elevate some of its features.
Yes.
Yes. Like the agricultural land, the city shouldn't go up to the places that's supposed to be for agriculture.
Yeah.
So that means, you see that bylaw that says you can't keep animals in Nairobi, it should never see light of day
Okay.
in the bylaws of Eldoret.
There are crazy people who will now want to keep 3 cows or 10 cows in their quarter, in their 16th of an acre. I think that was supposed to be for them.
Are we not able to imagine a world where people can have animals other than pets in an agricultural city?
In a
It's
city,
even illegal to actually have a cow that produces milk and you give that milk to your neighbors. It's illegal.
In Nairobi.
In Nairobi.
Nairobi alone, right?
In Nairobi, right?
Yeah. So I think the laws came about to solve a problem, but with time it becomes absurd. It doesn't apply. And we can rethink those laws then, because the way you're saying it, you're justifying that maybe we
Because
should
my
have
fear-
urban agriculture where we have animals.
Because my
chicken.
fear is this is an agricultural place, then you're bringing this thing you're calling a city.
Oh, so allow them
And then
to
you're
keep their cows.
alienating people from their native culture.
Oh, then
Yeah.
allow them to
Is
keep
it
their
not better
cows.
if it was not a city?
Mhm.
Because we had a good life before you declared it a city.
You had a cow.
Yeah, I mean, because you see, I've said in Nairobi, the only thing you can keep are pets and vermins.
Yes.
Under vermins, we have rats and cockroaches. That's the only thing you can keep undisturbed. If you keep chicken, it's a problem. So I think my view is this. For agricultural cities, and I think Eldoret is not going to be the last one.
Yeah. We have
For
Thika.
agricultural cities, we must find a way of planning these cities like that. We allow people who are raised up as farmers
To continue being
farmers while the city is thriving.
They'll be in the outskirts of the city where the farms are.
Now that's the problem. We don't need to throw ourselves out of this thing once we call it a city. You see,
Yeah,
like
that I
within
agree.
our, within, you see, like just like, okay, we have been able to push for green spaces. We can also push for animals. Is the same.
Debatable.
Debatable.
Question marks.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the next city then?
If the criteria is
Interesting.
population, what would be the next city?
I wouldn't say Kitale, no. No, Kitale is still
Why
small.
not?
It's still
Yeah.
small in terms of population.
Okay.
It doesn't. Okay, for these cities, for Nakuru and Eldoret, they've been looking at population as the main thing.
Okay.
So if you look at Kitale population, they still haven't
Okay.
reached. That's the main thing.
For me, my fear is that this criteria, it's vague,
Yes, it is.
very
It's
vague.
very vague, yeah.
Okay?
Actually, it was reduced. It used to be 500,000
Okay.
population.
Okay.
Then it was reduced to 50, so that Nakuru can't fit it. Now it has
There's a
also
motive.
accommodated.
I feel the
Eldoret.
population factor is a motive,
Yeah.
and is a motive that is anchored on taxation.
Yeah.
You see, when you only have 250, when you have let's assume that the powers that be are looking at places where they can easily collect taxes. Because when you have 500,000 people concentrated in one place, then it's easy to collect more taxes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even without providing these services. Remember, we started by saying that form follows function.
Function, yeah.
And our argument is that if a place does not have these functions, let it just remain a town.
Yeah.
And if the only thing we are looking at is the population, it is a bad criteria.
Yeah, and
Because-
let it not be
But-
a ceremonial thing to declare a city a city. The standards by which you hold the administration to provide services should be much higher.
Much,
than-
much higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should have a criteria that says, for example, recreational areas.
Yes.
For
all
every,
the factors.
so let's divide this to 50,000 by a stadium can keep between 10,000 and 40,000 people. So we should say, if a city does not have 10 stadiums, because
Yeah.
that's a good
Outlining
number.
the
Outlining
specific
as-
number.
yes.
Yeah, and if you don't provide them to quality as well, then I feel like you should also have a relegation strategy for these cities.
to be
Yes.
no, but the problem is once they start collecting revenue at a certain level, like when they raise the land rates, it is very hard for taxes to go backwards.
I mean,
Taxes.
now you should task the governance of that city.
I have an idea that I'm thinking. You see, there's what is the name of that act of parliament you mentioned?
Urban Areas and Cities Act.
So the Urban Areas and Cities Act needs to have, I don't know if it has, other than this saying 250,000, it should have certain minimum criteria
Yeah.
for air quality,
Oh yeah.
for mobility expectations, quality of life. Like for quality of life, it's easy to measure. It's the Human Development Index, isn't it? Like you see now in Eldoret, 38% of the people live below $1 a day.
Wow.
38%.
Yeah.
So unless the governance structures there bring this number down, for example, to maybe 20%,
Or zero.
Or zero, yes.
Can we ever
work with
achieve
zero.
zero?
Yeah, you
Really?
can.
Yeah,
There are no laws against.
we can try at least.
With a
that's the
country
aim.
that is known to have a very big disparity between the poor and the rich, can we really achieve that?
Because if you're saying your place is now a city,
That's
then you
the
should
aim.
bring the
I believe
science,
so.
the
Yeah.
facts and figures.
Okay.
Otherwise, every other person, if Mtuwetu gets into power, I can mobilize a few of us to go and say, now Vihiga,
To become a city.
tumezaana sana.
I mean, I've had talks about Kakamega having a team, ad hoc committee
Okay.
to confide to city status.
Okay.
In the news, there was also about Thika becoming a city. And rumors about Ruiru should be a city by now.
Yeah.
I mean, even me, Homa Bay should be
Yes.
a
Should be a
city. I
city.
mean,
And
So-
Murang'a.
and Murang'a as well should be.
And Mount Kenya.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Naivasha should.
And now you will throw in all the criteria
so all
and
of
say,
us want
if
to
your
be
place has a
cities.
mountain,
If
Yes.
if
Yeah.
it's the city title we are chasing,
Then let's all become cities.
yeah, we can
It's
all
cosmetic.
become cities and maybe have classifications. Maybe an A-class city,
Okay.
which is
Oh,
Nairobi
yeah,
and
yeah.
Mombasa.
Okay.
Then a B-class
No.
city.
I don't. If it's A class, let the standard
then
be A
this,
class.
is,
So
then
none of
this,
us.
Yes.
this just
A
becomes
class.
Then
academic.
there's
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you ask me, what we are all looking for is a high quality of life.
Yeah, and none of
All
none,
these
none of the
factors.
cities in
Yeah.
Kenya are providing that.
None of these ones are provided.
Maybe the aim is not to become a city then,
Then that should not be the
because
aim.
the cities in
We are
our
chasing the wrong
country are
things.
probably the worst places to live in.
What stops a town from providing these services? They have revenue, they have planners, they have the population, they have asphalt for the complete roads. I mean, the thing is, for me, it's too cosmetic. In my books, some of these places have not yet qualified to. Population alone should not. Anyway, if it's a factor, we should we should
Other
have
things.
it should be weighted so that population accounts for a very small criteria of a place. Because if I have to rush to to Nairobi for services,
Yeah.
if my children, the crime levels and the security is not guaranteed. If I can't leave my house and get to work by the clock because I do not know how the congestion would be, since the government has not provided the necessary infrastructure.
I think we are also forgetting a very important factor
Yeah.
is housing.
Housing,
Nairobi
yes.
has really failed to provide good housing.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go for house hunting right now, you'll not really not get a house that is good, that is value for your money. But
Okay.
I'm very sure if you go to Eldoret, you might find that.
At current population, but
Yeah,
will
with
it
current-
remain
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
in 3
hope
years?
so. We hope so. We hope the plan is.
You see, you can judge something. You can judge something mapema. When they were declaring it as a city, what were they saying? They were saying, oh, you see this photo is of a Mzungu who arrived here in this year. And then, you see, we have a roundabout. And this is the home of champions. Because, so what that tells me, at the launch of the city,
That they really may
what
not have.
what I expected to hear at the launch of the city
Yeah,
of
is
Eldoret
the
the plan.
50-year
was that,
strategy.
look,
Yes.
Yeah.
by 2026,
we will
We
have
want-
we will
beautiful
have
place
75%
housed.
of the residents in Eldoret housed,
You know,
including visitors.
if they do that, they'll automatically attract people to Eldoret. I'm very sure there are a
It
lot
will
of
be their
people.
interest, actually.
Yes. A lot of people have relocated to Nairobi because of opportunity. So it means Eldoret will create more opportunities, and people will be able to go back home and work at home and build their home. So it will
So,
balance.
so the thing is, I
population
didn't
between
hear
the
these
cities.
things. I didn't hear these things. I didn't hear about pollution. I didn't hear anything
Oh, they
about
didn't
air
mention
quality.
Yes.
Who was speaking? Because you see, if it's spoken from someone who is a little bit not so
Political,
well-versed
yeah,
and very
political
political
point of
and-
view.
There was a
and has
PowerPoint.
no idea.
There was a
Oh, there's a
PowerPoint,
PowerPoint, and that
yeah.
PowerPoint was created
It
for
didn't
the
have
sake
these
of
things.
politics and not really actual governance. Then, yeah, I hope he's not the only one making decisions.
Yeah.
I hope there are scientists behind him.
The hope is a strange animal. Hope is a strange animal.
Yes.
So for me, if something is failing on almost all these criteria, you know, then it really doesn't qualify. In fact, one of the things I want you to observe is how the land rates will change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, it
Yeah,
will become
yeah.
more
I have a
expensive to
feeling.
live there.
Yes.
it might become actually more expensive to
Oh
live
my
there.
goodness! It becomes like one of these perfect-looking cities that are so expensive to live in.
Your landlord will say,
Now,
Karibu City.
Karibu City.
Hey,
Ndo hii
it will-
rent.
I really wish the government would
Yes.
act like that. They'd be like, oh, now we are city. We should manage our
Because I
better.
feel that if the governance structures would uplift first the services,
Yes.
Yes.
it will be the people
Who will
demanding
like,
that the way you mentioned Kigali.
yes.
I think you should say something about Kigali,
Okay.
and then we say something about Vegas, because you see, these are also, it's part of the conversation. I saw people saying in Kigali, people obeyed the traffic rules.
Oh my gosh! And two important things, Kigali. On Thursdays, it's a car-free day. They walk.
Car-free day.
Yeah, and every first Saturday of the month, something
They
like that.
clean.
Everyone comes out to clean the city,
Imagine.
and that's something that everyone agrees upon. You don't have to be pushed to do.
No, there are laws. There are
Oh.
laws. If you don't, you'll be
Oh,
jailed.
you'll be jailed.
Yes.
You see?
But if
The
that's what
implementation is so.
So the,
So
the,
up
the,
notch,
the criminal justice system
Works.
in there is not
Yes.
It's
criminal.
not the same.
It's not
Yeah,
criminal.
yeah.
It's not criminal. But also, I think what benefits them, the same way what benefits Singapore, smaller city, smaller population, smaller area,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Nairobi is
Yeah.
large.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there are mistakes, yes, but Nairobi is large. And we are many.
But you know, let me tell you, when you go to Kitengela, for example, and at the stage, just when you come off Mombasa Road, and you look at the clutter of the shops, yeah, like order. You know, order. You remember we discussed beauty the other time. So when you go to Kitengela and you can actually have a headache just looking at the clutter. There's driving school sign. We are selling this, repairing
Hardware.
mobiles. There's a lady selling nguo. There's another one selling socks. Another one selling
University on the
tomatoes.
third floor.
There's a university on the third floor. There's someone honking. There's taxis hapa chini. And you
There's
see
goats.
smallness.
Goats you
Yeah.
wanted.
I'm speaking to I'm speaking about smallness. If Kitengela wanted
To become a city.
to be a small Kigali, what is stopping it? It
Governance.
has Uma University.
Yes.
It has the population.
Yes.
In fact, we normally say it's the bedroom
Of
of
Nairobi, yes.
together with the
Another smaller town.
the other bedroom is Rongai. If Rongai wanted to be a small
city.
Kigali,
Yeah,
what stops
will
it?
be.
It can.
They have a governance structure.
Yeah.
They have roles that could include everyone. They have a chance to have playgrounds and play areas and parks.
Yes.
Why are they not? Why don't we just like order through and through?
We just simply don't care about order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both private developers, both the
So-
government.
We are
So
like,
you are
that's not
saying
my
you are-
problem.
That's not my problem.
Am I
Yeah.
hearing you right? If you took this Nairobi, you know, you mentioned that now that Eldoret is a city, it will attract more people there.
Yeah.
But if these are the same people, this was in Nairobi, are the ones who have turned Nairobi into a slum-like scenario. Are you saying if we took them to Kigali, these Nairobians, and we took them to Eldoret, they would turn, they would have another Mukuru kwa Ruben there in Eldoret?
I think when in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's possible that the environment, if it's set right, it also change the mindset of who is
Yeah.
coming
Yeah,
into
yeah,
that
yeah.
That setting is missing. I said
Yes.
at the launch of Eldoret, that setting is
It
missing.
was
And I think
missing.
this is the right time.
Yeah.
The people who promulgated it, or what do you call that exercise, they should go and put in place this criteria to prevent slum formation,
Oh yes.
to prevent urban sprawl, or what is that called, to prevent a lack of green areas,
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
important.
Land grabbing.
and the grazing fields I spoke about.
Okay. Okay. Allow animals.
Allow animals. I mean, don't create an enmity between people and their way of life. Because this is what makes people feel like. I have an analogy. When you're driving from your rural home to Nairobi, compare that mood and when you are driving from Nairobi to your rural home.
It's very
When are you happier?
When leaving Nairobi.
You
when
can even
you can
sense
tell
the
air,
difference.
Very
air
nice.
difference,
Yeah.
quality,
Very
yeah,
nice.
freedom.
So does
finally
this mean
quiet.
now
Yeah.
you are creating two centers of sadness
Yes.
by declaring Eldoret a city?
So
So it means I'll be sad both ways. Is that what you
That's sad, actually. That's another perspective
serious?
I
Yeah.
didn't think about.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to go to a
Imagine
city.
if you're driving maybe towards Kitale,
Okay.
Yeah.
you'll pass through Nakuru,
Yes.
which we don't want to be hell, but
Yeah.
it might be hell.
Yeah.
Then you go to Eldoret, another hell.
Yeah. And,
So-
and if
so
you
don't
lived in the
declare-
outskirts,
Don't declare Kitale a city, please.
Yes.
We want
Let's
this
leave
happiness.
leave that happiness for us
We want
at
it,
least.
yes,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Because it's a visible test.
yeah.
It's a visible test that if you're driving towards a place and you feel more sad,
Yeah.
then it
Tells you
means
something.
it tells you something. And so if this criteria is missing,
Mhm.
so the best way, in my view, the best way to avoid the mistakes of Nairobi
Yeah.
is for these new cities and those ones which are planning to become cities
Mhm.
to put down the criteria.
Mhm.
And this is the best place to have public participation. Like,
Yes.
was there public participation
Was
before
that,
Eldoret
that's
was
an
declared a city?
interesting.
On paper, yes.
Yes.
I hope on the ground
There was.
as well.
But you know, we have never defined what public participation is in our
Mhm.
context. You know, I can come me as maybe as a planner, I can come and engage you and say, oh, I did public participation. I talked to Nahinga about this. That's public participation. It doesn't. It can be a one person thing or a 50-person thing or a 100-person thing. It doesn't matter. So that's the
I
problem.
think some of these things even need a referendum.
People to
Because
vote.
yes, like
Kenyans
if you're
to
going
vote.
for the people, the residents of that city, those 250,000 people,
Mhm.
they should vote on whether this place should be declared a city or not. Because if it's going to come with increased land rates, if it's going to come with exclusion, I'm going to be excluded from using. If I've been parking here all my career as a Ndudi person, I'm a Boda Boda person, and now when you declare it a city, now if I look up, I know Ndudis are allowed here,
Yeah.
and now I need to go to the outskirts of the city. So don't you think there is need, since you're invading my space by declaring this thing a city, this building that has always been there, don't you think that in that cities and
Urban areas and cities.
urban areas and cities, don't you think we must allow provision for a referendum before a place is declared a city? Because the referendum will force you to say, this is the criteria. We are declaring this an agricultural city or an industrial city. And these are the industry we would like to bring. Then people would say, no, there'll be too much pollution. We do not want.
Yeah.
Let's continue with our way of
So
life.
maybe not a referendum, maybe a public participation in a way of having citizen assembly,
Okay.
like people just to come and the people to share. We want to make Eldoret a city. This is what we want to see in 2030. So these people will be a representative of the.
Because for
the
Nairobi, if
whole
I remember,
population,
I think there were 3 people who decided what the master plan of Nairobi would be.
Back in like 1901 or
an
something.
engineer,
48.
I think a sociologist, and some third guy.
Okay.
They just sat and said, this is what Nairobi will be. Yeah, because maybe we didn't have the other professions. But now that we have so many urban planners and
Yeah.
engineers and teachers and people in the arts, people in the sciences, why don't we make room for these people? And this is a Kenyan thing that always takes me back. Why don't we make room for these intellectuals or these experts or these people with the historical and cultural knowledge
To also participate in
to also
it.
participate in this city
I agree.
formation?
I agree. There's also the bit about democracy. The list you've mentioned is probably 2% of the population.
Okay.
The masses, and you've seen how the masses move in this country. Sometimes very, very uninformed, uneducated, and they follow the politician. And you've seen politicians who are uninformed, who are able to convince people, let's make it a city.
Maybe we are just not exposed to the goodness of Kenyans.
Yeah, so
There
educate
are very
Kenyans
many-
maybe.
There are very many
Advocacy.
Kenyans.
Yes.
There are
Yeah,
very many
advocacy.
Kenyans. Let's say this. Let's say the governor of Eldoret, the governor of Uasin Gishu,
Yes.
made a public announcement in
Yeah.
Uasin Gishu and said,
Yeah.
residents of Eldoret, we are looking for people who are willing to donate 5 acres so that the government can invest in public parks. How
People
many
to
people?
the
Yes, please.
what? Okay.
You know why I say that?
Who would agree to give away 5
Yeah.
acres for the
I
sake
will
of?
say, I will say. You know why? The Harvard University, there's a man who was called John Harvard. And he saw that if he donated his collection of books and some land, it would benefit the community where he lived.
Yes.
And that was the beginning of the Harvard University that we know. It began with a man finding it in his heart to donate land to form a university, and his books to form the library of the university.
We hereby call upon the rich people of this country to donate acres and acres to do this. Then, if that's the case,
Don't you know there are people
that's
owning
brilliant.
half a
Let
Rwanda?
them donate
Don't you know
them.
there are people owning half a Rwanda in Kenya?
let them
And don't you know
donate.
they actually
then
come
let-
from those areas?
But they have created their own personal cities.
Yes.
But you know, let me say something. I know we are acclimatized to people grabbing
Land.
even playgrounds
Let
for
them
children.
have let them have this
But
heart.
I
to give.
want to believe
Call them to
that
give.
there is a silent majority of generous Kenyans.
Who wants to give land?
If the governor took the liberty to say,
The governor himself
Our
should donate
children-
the land. He has
Yes.
the land.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
he would have demonstrated
Let
his
him
conviction.
donate
Yes.
as one of the first people
Now,
Be the
to
leader
give.
now,
for this.
the absence of the announcement by the governor does not mean there are people who are not willing. So, look at it this way. We have squandered a big opportunity.
Yes.
Eldoret could have been, it
The
could have
model,
been
the
the
model,
model
yes.
city
And that
for other
declaration,
cities.
Yes.
that declaration could have schooled the entire Kenyans.
Yes.
Like we could have told them, this is what we want it to go
You know,
to.
Yeah, we have a chance, I think. There's an article that said that if you analyze Isiolo as a town, it fits to be a
perfectly.
perfect city.
Yeah, it can
So
actually be the
Isiolo-
capital
yes.
of Kenya,
So you-
yes?
Isiolo has
You
no
think
problems.
Isiolo
has
can
been
now take
developed.
the
Can
mantle?
So-
shift from Nairobi.
Yes.
Mhm.
We start shifting small
Yeah.
Okay,
things to
okay.
I
Isiolo.
like it. Mm.
So you mentioned Kigali.
Yeah.
You know why you mentioned Kigali? Because it's a good example.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, hypothetically, if a governor is hearing us
Yes.
and they would like to turn their place into a city, please take these ideas for free. For example, just say we love our children. Let's say we the people of Isiolo, we love our children. We want out of every 5,000 families,
Yeah.
someone to donate 10 acres.
That's a crazy idea.
It's beautiful and it will work because
Yeah.
think about it this way. Do you as a landscape, as an urban designer, have you wished you had this empty canvas where you could apply your skills, which you
Yes.
have?
Yes.
You don't need retraining. You already have these skills,
Yeah.
and turn it into the most beautiful
City.
Exactly.
urban park.
Example.
Yes.
Imagine if you had 50 or 10 in Eldoret. Do you know how many people would want to relocate from this Nairobi city of
go there.
garbage to go and just now live 3 minutes away from these parks in Eldoret? Imagine if we had this statistic that in Eldoret, within every 2 kilometers, there is a public park and none looks similar to the other. Because the governor went to the database of urban planners in Kenya and he engaged these 50 urban planners, the most brilliant in Kenya, and they've designed these 50 urban parks.
Yeah.
We will stop talking about even city of champions.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about city of parks.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Actually, yeah.
Nice.
It
It
can
doesn't
work,
have to
right?
be.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
And do you know
City
what
of
would have
Champions.
happened if that was the case? They would have avoided almost 30% of the
Of issues.
mistakes of Nairobi.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because if I'm in Langata and I want to go to Uhuru Gardens, what do I find there? Lock and key.
Nowadays there's a boundary wall and everything.
If I am in Upper Hill and I get to Sibidan to go to Uhuru Park, what do I find?
Lock and key also.
Tomboya Hall.
Yeah, same thing.
If I'm in Eastlands,
Yeah.
Nairobi River.
Yeah.
Nairobi River.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As we conclude, maybe we'll go each and say our last take about Eldoret being a city.
Okay.
Yeah. You can start.
I mean, For the sake of cliche, congratulations.
Congratulations for what?
I mean, city status.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And I would want Eldoret to be the model city. So I'm hoping that the governance and the people and whoever it is who's in charge of these decisions can really make it the example of what a city should be. Not learning from Nairobi, yes, but then not repeating the same mistakes we've seen in other cities.
Okay. I have no congratulations, but if I look at the way they've started, they've really started on a low. When you're launching something grand like a city for people, please hold these people in high regard. 250,000 people, there are so many people.
Yeah.
And there are so many intelligent people among those ones. So even honoring something like someone's skill, like a sculptor. You remember in Nairobi we had these lions and this sign that said welcome to Nairobi.
Look like but they were not lions, those were ghosts.
Simba imenyeshewa. So the thing is, they've begun on such a low point, and so it sets the expectations very low.
Yeah.
And so for me, my word to the people running Eldoret, the powers that be, is please go back to the drawing board and correct these small things that can break it, because it's too nice to be broken.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep the glory. Let's keep the glory of Eldoret. Let's not begin with the mediocrity. It's like we're beginning at the lowest point of Nairobi. That's where we are beginning. So I think that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Other than that, thanks for the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
On my side, I like being the face of hope, though Nahinga doesn't agree with hope. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll agree whatever Brenda and Nahinga you've said, they're valid. And to avoid mistakes that Nairobi has done is Eldoret should involve their professionals. Like, trust me, there are a lot of planners and architects and QSs who are ready to engage and maybe come up with solutions to solve some of these problems that Eldoret is already facing, because we are worried if even the current infrastructure can handle the current population. So if you involve your profession, we'll move in a good direction.
Okay. Asante.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Next time we look at the comments. We forgot to look at the comments, but not to worry, we'll address them in the next episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Asanteni sana for your time. That was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it really was a good one.
Thank you for tuning in.
Asante.